Hello, Cooper Glover, 1972. I'm here with movies I've watched during the week. It's what day is it? Well, it's 2:45 in the morning, Sunday, but technically it's really Saturday for me. So it's really the 26th. It's this week in movies. Um, Let me just check the calendar for a second here. Um, okay, so I thought I'd watch four movies. Turns out three movies. Turns out I watched four. Um, I think the first two, I think doing them in the right order. But anyways, I've been taking some movies out of the library where I work, um, and so I've been take. Well, you're going to see another one that I took out that is not new, but I've been taking out some new ones as well. Trying to remember, I thought there's another one I think I took out, but I think I talked about that. I think I showed that in the previous video I did of my, week films I've watched during the week. So, anyways, let me get to the movies. First off, we've got Fahrenheit 451, based on the Ray Bradbury book. It's the newer version. It's not the Francois Truffaut version. It's with Michael Shannon. Um, and I've seen both versions. I saw the Truffaut version at the Jacob Burns Film Center in Pleasantville, New York, and even though the effects are kind of cheesy for the Truffaut version, I think I prefer it better because like back in those days, they didn't rely on CGI. Not that movies with CGI can't work or are not enjoyable or whatever, but I think it's pretty inventive what they did at the time. Working on with more primitive means of technology, and you know, um, it just a different, and maybe the time it was made or something. Maybe it had like a certain relevance that it does. It sort of has a relevance today too. It sort of has a relevance, like with Trump and everything, but and the government in general. But um, so the stories about people about the authorities burning books, all sorts of books. So I've never read the book, but I feel like I should. I read it. When I read, I tend to read lots of nonfiction, and I haven't really read too much recently, except I started God Is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens. But um, what was I going to say? I like reading the classics like Dostoevsky or Camus or Vonnegut or Mailer or um, like Charlotte Bronte, or is it Emily Bronte, the woman who wrote Wuthering Heights? People I'd like to read like Philip Roth. I think I'd like to, and you know, and then there are people I've read like Philip K. Dick. And there's a guy that the film wrote the novel that the movie Stalker by Tarkovsky is based on, called Roadside Picnic. I think it's more than one author. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but Yeah, so Fahrenheit 451, I probably give it out of 5 stars. The new version. Um, would I give it 3 or 3.5? Let's see, 3 or 3.5. Um, I'll give it 3.5. It's a little better than marginal thumbs up because of the maybe because of the topic it's discussing and the importance of educating yourself and seeing things for what they really are, or you know, being able to design a logical way of thinking of rationalizing and weighing the facts as they truly are by getting the different sources of news from different areas and trying to find the holes and trying to find where things fit and where things don't fit. Maybe I'm babbling on. I don't know. So the second film I saw was on Netflix. I saw a film previous to this one that I'm just going to talk to you about now, and they're both about Stanley Kubrick, and both of the movies are about people that assisted Stanley Kubrick. They basically did. They were ran errands. I can't remember the last one entirely well. As the the one I watched, I think I've talked about it on my channel. I think I did. S is for Stanley. I think that that particular assistant was Italian, I think, and he retired at a certain point from working with Stanley Kubrick. But like one of his duties was taking the sculpture, not Clockwork Orange. You probably know the sculpture, what I'm talking about. From somewhere in England to another part of the UK. Having this sculpture, you know, in the car, kind of look odd to people, but he was doing a duty for or a task or whatever for Stanley Kubrick. So, anyways, this particular movie is called Film Worker. I think it's called Film Worker. It's on YouTube. I mean, not YouTube, Netflix. You just put in Kubrick in the browser, and it will come up. And it's about Leon Vitali, who played Lord Bullingdon and Barry Lyndon. He told Kubrick that he'd like to work for him after Barry Lyndon, and Kubrick said, well then, make sure you know what you're doing. So like he would, Leon Vitali would hang around people editing films, and he wouldn't get paid for any of these things, and just to learn the knowledge so he could work with Stanley Kubrick. And then he talks about the next step, which was working with Stanley Kubrick and how demanding he was, like um, redoing the packages, the labeling for his films, like um, a picture from one of his movies would be a centimeter off on the VHS or DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, and he would have to deal with that. He would have to deal with the colorings on film strips. I mean, horrendous. I mean, just lots and lots of things. And he would ask, Kubrick did. I mean, everything. Like, have you fed the cats this? Have you fed the dogs that? And I mean, just everything you can think of. And you didn't say no to him. You either worked for Kubrick or you didn't. There's no gray area. That's what he says in the film, or somebody says. I don't think he says that. I think it's somebody else. Maybe it's a Warner Brothers person or some other person. Basically, they're saying for these people like David Lean Kubrick, you don't really. There's no gray area. You either do or you do not. So you have either totally commit yourself or you don't do it at all. And even though Kubrick could be nice sometimes, he also could be quite mad because you don't know, like Leon Vitali would come to the set with, or come to see him with what Kubrick would want, but sometimes Kubrick he was worried that sometimes Kubrick would get mad at him because he'd bring the wrong information or the wrong or the wrong thing that he was asked to think about or whatever. So he Kubrick could get angry too, very angry. And there's another person in the film who was an assistant as well, and she worked on Eyes Wide Shut. I don't think she worked on Full Metal Jacket, and she said Kubrick could have a really bad temper, and this could be even more. What's the word I'm looking for? Articulated or whatever. If you watch the Shining DVD, there's a documentary that comes with it, which is shot by Kubrick's daughter Vivian. I think it's Vivian Kubrick, and she's so she's shooting the Kubrick shooting the film, and he's yelling at Shelley Duvall, and the scene where she comes out of the overlook, pulling the door, and the doors coming out slowly because of the snow is so high. Well, she didn't come out fast enough, and Kubrick is saying to Shelley Duvall, he's saying, "We're waiting for you. You're screwing it all up. We're waiting all this time, and you're not doing what I'm telling you to do. So." But I still love Kubrick. I mean, he knew every aspect of the filmmaking process, and in this film, he's also talking about like Kubrick knows every single aspect, or he wanted to be involved with everything. And like with his films, when he shot a film, like Barry Lyndon would be the perfect example. He'd have to wait for the right light, so it could take literally many weeks. I don't know, just, and then he'd want to shoot at another angle, and he'd have to wait for the lighting to work. Um, One of the things about Barry Lyndon is because he shot it in I think Ireland, England, and or UK and mainland Europe, in particular parts of Europe. They say that the weather changes very quickly, and so like when there was overcast with the clouds or the sun or whatever, the camera operators would have to open the iris of the lens to let in more light, or not let less light in. And the reason for doing that is to make the image consistent, because if they just left the iris at a certain degree or whatever, and didn't adjust it as the shot was being done, it possibly could be ruined, the shot. So it's like painstaking work, like filmmaking. I've worked on some film sets, and it's a demanding job. It's physically hard, it's emotionally hard, it's intellectually hard. It's a major miracle just to like write a script. It's a major miracle to make the movie. It's a major miracle to edit, and then show it, and then distribute it, and keep the fire going. So it's not something to be taken lightly, I guess is what I would say. All right, so enough of that. So now two more movies to go. I watched this one last night. This is from Roman Polanski. If I had this a while in my collection, but I just never watched it. It's Cul-de-sac. It came out in 1966. Donald Pleasence is in this movie, and Francois Dorliac. She, I think if I got this correctly, she was Catherine Deneuve's sister that was hired for the part. I think maybe Roman Polanski wanted to hire Catherine Deneuve, but for some reason he couldn't. And then they also have a gangster character with him, played by Lionel Stander, and he's kind of this gruff, burly, kind of fat guy that takes them kind of hostage, and there must be some like heavy depth to this film because and like existential absurdity or whatever because well, I think it's an island where this castle is where it takes place, and it's kind of inventive because they didn't. I don't. Well, they sort of wrote a script, but I think they improvised somewhat to some degree, and I kind of liked it that way. Um, but like the gangster comes in a car like a Volkswagen, or is it a Volkswagen? I don't know. It's but um, and he leaves a guy there to wait for him, and while the guy's waiting, um, the water rises and it floods the car, and there's a guy who's in it. Um, it doesn't say here. It might say in the book that comes with it. See, hold a sec. I think I've showed this in my DVD and Blu-ray collections. Yeah, Albie is his name, Jack McGowan, and he's um, he's the guy that has to wait for the gangster. Um, oh yeah, so I have other things to say too, but this particular guy that was waiting in the car, he's waited in very cold water, like freezing water, for them to get a shot. He was in a wetsuit for that particular shot, but he was still freezing. I think he could have almost froze to death. So that gives you an idea of how dedicated he was to getting the shot put in. The cinematographer for this film was Gilbert Taylor, and right down there, if you know what else he's done, I think he said in the special features that he worked on a Bond film, or he was going to. I don't know if he did Spy Who Loved Me, or maybe I'm confusing it with the director of the movie. Um, and I think Gilbert Taylor was the DP on the first Star Wars, The New Hope, 77. I think he was the first cinematographer, but I'm not positive. I don't know exactly. Oh, so going back to Film Worker, I'd give that 4.5 stars out of 5. I'd give Cul-de-sac, I'd give that um, 4 stars out of 5. And last up, we've got a film with Robert Mitchum, directed by David Lean, um, Ryan's Daughter. I just watched this right now. I have mixed feelings about this film. I think it's beautifully shot, but there's a lot of friction that was happening. Just very very difficult. The other disc is in the player because I watched the special features. Not all of them. I watched. I guess it's MGM's version of the behind the scenes stuff and the reception and all that of the film. Um, so Ryan's Daughter is about this woman. I think she lives in Ireland and she doesn't really, she sort of sticks out of the crowd. She's the black sheep of the community. And she meets Robert Mitchum at the Star, and he's very cultured and he's very like, he's a teacher, but he's probably, that's part of the reason why he might be cultured because he's very literate and all. And she decides to marry him, but she regrets it when she meets this soldier who's a British soldier, and so um, basically she cheats on her husband, and there's an aftermath on how that's going to be dealt with by the townspeople, with her husband, with her lover, and I got to tell you that the townspeople in this film, and maybe they're supposed to be hated, I absolutely despise them. I know. I think in Ireland it until very very recently, maybe the 80s or late 70s, because of the Catholic Church there, that if you tried the divorce, it was against the law. It sort of reminds you of Iran. In Iran, in order for a woman to divorce her husband, she has to get permission from her husband. And there's a good illustration of that in the film called A Separation, which was Iran's first winner of a foreign film Oscar. And the government took the credit for it when it's not really praising the government, and the credit should really go to the director who was there, who did go to the Oscars. But I think he had to go. He was under the conditions that he had to come back to Iran after he had won the Oscar. Um, so, anyways, Ireland, I think, had this law, and if you know more about this, just comment down below. But Ireland had this law that you couldn't divorce, um, and that's been overturned now. I think, pretty sure. Well, I almost positive on that, but yeah, the townspeople don't like the fact that she had an affair, and I don't think it's really their business to have that kind of. It reminded me of Breaking the Waves too, because Emily Watson, the person she's in love with, Stellan Skarsgård, because he's paralyzed. He says to her, "Have an affair with somebody so that I can be happy for you," and then because of that, the community turns on her. So that sort of reminds me of that. And of course, that film, Breaking the Waves, is set in Scotland. An interesting fact about Ryan's Daughter and Cul-de-sac is they take place like on shores, on seashores. You got the sand here and but this, yeah, this has a very playful, improvisational style to it. Going back to Ryan's Daughter, there are some pretty nice shots, like David Lean does, of the beach and the waves, very beautiful shots, and some beautiful shots of the countryside of Ireland. But in order to get some of the shots, they had to go to Cape Town, South Africa, and shoot there from January to March, I believe. I know that because I watch the special features. I still got to watch a little more of the special features. Then there's the commentary. There's another thing I'd like to say about David Lean is that he seems to like to go on and on and on and on, with his movies. I guess he knows how he knows how to end it, but it plays itself out a long ways. The only other director I can think of at this very moment that does that, like like end the film and then there's another ending and another ending and then finally it ends. There's a film that I think is the perfect example of that, and that's Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. If you remember, I won't say too much, but something happens to the hobbits in one scene. Then you think that's the end of the movie. Then the hobbits in another scene, and then the hobbits in a third scene, and the hobbits in a fourth scene. So it just keeps going on and on and on and on. And David Lean seems to have that, and he starts. I mean, Lawrence of Arabia is one of my favorite films of all time. And I like the epicness of it. I like the length of it and the ambition of it. But he goes on quite some time. I guess that's. I mean, I think of a film like 1900 by Bertolucci. That's about 5 hours and 15 minutes, and I think the shooting period time was at least 4 to 5 months. So, and it kind of sags. Like, I know I'm digressing, but it sort of relates. It sort of sags in the middle. It's not totally tight, but I don't mind it. Ryan's Daughter, it got kind of boring at the start, I guess you could say. I don't know if I'd go there to that place, you know, in Ireland to like visit. I don't think I find it kind of boring. So, anyways, um, what was I gonna say now? But then it picked up with a soldier, and it had the nice love scenes, you know, with flowers and colors on the windows, and you know, to he's doing these subtle things to evoke a certain emotion, and he did that in Chicago as well. But I don't think he does it as well in Ryan's Daughter as he did in Chicago. So I'm going to give this film probably about oh, and I was a little confused too what was happening. But then the special features, I realized um, why the village turned more against the main character towards the end of the film. I because it didn't make sense to me while I was watching it, you know, entirely. I knew they were mad and they were religious and all that stuff, but I didn't get why they did what they did, and you'll see that when you watch the movie. Anyways, I give Ryan's Daughter out of 5 stars. I give it 4. I'll give it 4. So not David Lean's best film, but not his worst either. I mean, Brief Encounter, I don't like as much. I'm not wild about Brief Encounter, and I think I've seen a few of the Dickens movies. I think I saw Great Expectations. I think he did that, and I think he did Nicholas Nickleby, and I think Great Expectations. I think well, Nicholas Nickleby was on Mubi. It might be on Fandor. I'm not sure, but all right. So, anyways, I'm dragging on. I think I've said enough, and I'll put my links down below my blog and my GarageBand notice. Um, and I have set up a new channel for my GarageBand songs. Um, I set it up, but I haven't put any videos on it. So you know, it's called Page Hendricks Slash at well, yeah. So that's the name of the channel, Page Hendricks Clap, Page Hendricks Slash is in Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix and Slash from Guns N' Roses. So, all right, I'm going on way too long now, so I'll shut up and looking forward to your comments. Thanks a lot. See you soon. Bye bye.